November 22nd, 1995, 7:18 a.m. EST. The Howard Stern Show Studios, Manhattan. 20 million Americans were drinking their morning coffee when the king of all media made a bet that would create the most impossible vocal challenge in entertainment history. Howard Stern, the man who built his career on controversy and cynicism, was about to meet the one person who could make him question everything he thought he knew about human capability. Whitney Houston was listening to that broadcast from her East Orange home, and what she decided to do next would silence every critic who had ever doubted the power of her voice. This is the untold story of how a radio shock jock's skepticism collided with a woman who had spent 24 years preparing for exactly this moment. The story of how one phone call turned doubt into worship, cynicism into reverence, and impossible into inevitable. Howard Stern leaned into his microphone that cold November morning, his familiar nasal New York accent cutting through the early morning static that connected him to 20 million listeners across America. Robin Quivers sat across from him, her morning show notes spread across the desk, while Fred Norris prepared sound effects and Jackie Martling scribbled jokes on napkins. They had been discussing Whitney Houston's latest album for the past 20 minutes, dissecting every track with the kind of brutal honesty that had made Howard's show appointment, listening for anyone who wanted their entertainment raw and unfiltered. "Look, I'm not saying she's not talented," Howard said, gesturing with his coffee cup. "The woman can sing. Nobody's arguing that. But this whole 8-octave range thing, come on. That's marketing nonsense designed to sell records to people who don't understand how the human voice actually works." Robin leaned forward, always ready to challenge Howard's cynicism. "Howard, she's been claiming it for years. Multiple vocal coaches have confirmed it. Why would she lie about something so easily disproven?" Because Howard shot back. "Most people have never heard 8 octaves demonstrated live. They hear her hit some high notes in the studio, maybe catch a low note here and there, and they assume she's got this supernatural range. But studio magic, Robin. Auto-tune might not exist yet, but there are plenty of ways to enhance a voice in post-production." Fred triggered a sound effect, a cash register ding. The crew laughed, but Howard wasn't finished. "You want to know what I think? I think Whitney Houston has a beautiful voice within a normal range, maybe 5 or 6 octaves at most. The 8-octave thing is clever marketing from Arista Records to make her seem superhuman, and everyone just accepts it because she's the voice." Jackie passed a note to Howard. Howard read it and grinned. "Jackie says maybe she borrowed some octaves from Mariah Carey." More laughter from the crew, but then Howard's tone shifted, becoming more serious, more focused. This was Howard Stern, the businessman, not just the entertainer. "You know what? Let's make this interesting. Whitney, if you're listening, and I know you've got people who monitor this show because every celebrity does, I'm calling you out right here, right now." November 22nd, 1995, 7:18 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Robin's eyes widened. "Howard, what are you doing?" "Making a bet that's long overdue. Whitney Houston, you claim you have an 8-octave range. Prove it. Do one concert. One single live concert where you demonstrate all 8 octaves with no studio enhancement, no backing tracks doing the heavy lifting, no tricks. Just you, a microphone, and that supposedly supernatural voice." The studio went quiet, even for Howard, known for outrageous publicity stunts. This was bold territory, and Howard continued, his voice getting more confident as the idea took shape. "If you can actually do it, if you can prove that 8-octave range is real, I will personally write a check for $1 million to any music education charity you choose." Robin leaned back in her chair, stunned. "Howard, $1 million? You're serious?" "Dead serious, Robin. This is about truth in advertising. If Whitney can back up her claims, fantastic. $1 million goes to help kids learn music. But if she can't," Howard paused for dramatic effect, "then she has to come on this show and admit that the 8-octave thing is exaggerated marketing, that she's a great singer with a normal human voice range." Fred played a dramatic orchestral sting. The phone lines lit up immediately. Listeners calling in, some defending Whitney, others supporting Howard's challenge. But Howard wasn't taking calls yet. He was building momentum. 8 octaves, Whitney. 1 concert. You choose the venue. You choose the charity. Hell, you can even choose the songs, but prove it or stop claiming it. What Howard Stern didn't know was that Whitney Houston had been preparing for this challenge her entire life. 3,000 miles away in East Orange, New Jersey, Whitney Houston sat in her home studio, listening to Howard's challenge with a mixture of amusement and determination. Her assistant, Patricia, had called her attention to the radio segment, expecting Whitney to be offended by Howard's public skepticism. Instead, Whitney was smiling. "Miss Whitney, are you going to respond to this?" Patricia asked nervously. Whitney stood up from her piano bench, walked to her phone, and did something that would shock 20 million radio listeners. She called Howard Stern's studio directly. "Get me Howard Stern's producer," Whitney said calmly. "Tell them Whitney Houston is on the line and wants to talk to Howard right now." Patricia stared at her in disbelief. "You're going to call him now?" "During the show. He said I couldn't do something," Whitney replied, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had spent 24 years preparing for exactly this moment. "I'm going to show him what 24 years of preparation looks like." What Howard didn't understand was that Whitney's 8-octave range wasn't just a natural gift. It was the result of obsessive, systematic training that had begun when she was 11 years old. Starting at New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, Whitney had approached vocal development with the dedication of a classical pianist. 4 hours daily, 2 hours on technical exercises, scales, arpeggios, breath control, 1 hour on range extension, pushing her voice systematically higher and lower, 1 hour on emotional expression, learning to convey feeling across every note she could reach. By age 15, she was studying with classical instructors who normally worked with opera singers. They taught her the technical foundation that would support her natural gift: proper breathing, diaphragm control, vocal placement, the difference between chest voice, head voice, and the mysterious whistle register that only a few humans could access. But the secret to Whitney's range wasn't just technical training, it was spiritual preparation. In the gospel tradition, the voice is considered a direct channel to the divine. Whitney learned to sing not just with her vocal cords but with her entire being. Every octave was a prayer, every note was an offering, every song was a conversation with God. By 1995, Whitney had been performing professionally for over a decade, but she had never been publicly challenged to demonstrate the full extent of her capabilities. Howard Stern's bet wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about artistic integrity, about proving that extraordinary claims sometimes come from extraordinary people who have done extraordinary work. November 22nd, 1995, 11:45 a.m. EST. The How 23 days. That's how long Whitney Houston had to prepare for what would become the most technically demanding vocal performance in entertainment history. Madison Square Garden, December 15th, 1995. 8 octaves across 10 musical genres in front of 20,000 people, with Howard Stern's credibility and $1 million hanging in the balance. What happened during those 23 days of preparation would reveal the true scope of Whitney's obsession with vocal perfection and prove that extraordinary achievements require extraordinary preparation. "Deal," Howard managed to say into his microphone, his voice carrying none of its usual confidence. The word hung in the air for several seconds before Whitney responded. December 15th, Madison Square Garden. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. Howard, you might want to bring a very large checkbook. The line went dead. 20 million listeners had just witnessed the most confident acceptance of an impossible challenge in radio history. Robin Quivers broke the silence first. "Howard, do you realize what just happened? You just challenged Whitney Houston to prove something that vocal experts say is theoretically impossible, and she didn't just accept, She escalated. Howard was still staring at the phone. Fred, play that back. Did that actually happen? Fred rewound the conversation and played it back. Howard's challenge, followed by Whitney's immediate acceptance and her conditions. Madison Square Garden, 10 genres, 3 hours, no breaks. She's not just confident, Jackie Wadling said quietly. She's prepared. People don't accept challenges like that unless they know they can deliver. Howard leaned back in his chair, suddenly realizing the magnitude of what he had just set in motion. Robin, what if she actually does it? What if Whitney Houston walks onto that stage and demonstrates 8 octaves across 10 genres for 3 hours without a single mistake? Then you write a very large check, Robin replied, and learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating people who have spent their entire lives perfecting their craft. Meanwhile, in East Orange, New Jersey, Whitney Houston was already planning the most comprehensive vocal preparation of her career. She called her longtime vocal coach, Gary Katona, and scheduled 4 hours of daily training for the next 3 weeks. She contacted the New York Philharmonic to arrange for a full orchestra. She reached out to the Lincoln Center Institute to design a concert program that would showcase not just her range but her versatility across multiple musical traditions. Gary, Whitney said during their first preparation session, "This isn't just about proving I have 8 octaves. This is about demonstrating that the human voice, properly trained and spiritually guided, can transcend what people think are biological limitations." Gary Katona had been working with professional singers for over 30 years, but he had never worked with anyone who approached vocal training with Whitney's combination of technical precision and spiritual dedication. "Whitney, what you're attempting is unprecedented. 8 octaves across 10 genres in a single performance. Most opera singers couldn't sustain that level of technical excellence for 3 hours. Then it's a good thing I'm not most opera singers," Whitney replied with a smile that carried both humility and absolute confidence. "Gary, I've been preparing for this challenge my entire life. I just didn't know it would come from Howard Stern." The preparation regimen Whitney developed for the Madison Square Garden concert was unlike anything in music history. 6 hours daily, 2 hours of pure technical work, scales and arpeggios designed to maintain flexibility across her entire range, 2 hours of genre-specific preparation, studying the vocal requirements of gospel, classical, jazz, blues, rock, country, world music, soul, pop and hip-hop, 2 hours of endurance training, learning to maintain perfect pitch and tone quality while performing continuously for 3 hours. But the most important aspect of Whitney's preparation wasn't technical, it was spiritual. She spent an additional 2 hours daily in prayer and meditation, asking for the strength and guidance to use her gift in a way that would honor both the challenge and the music itself. "This performance isn't about ego," Whitney explained to her mother, Cissy Houston, during one of their evening conversations. "It's about showing people what's possible when you combine natural ability with decades of disciplined work and spiritual foundation." Cissy, herself a legendary gospel singer, understood the magnitude of what Whitney was attempting. "Baby, you're not just singing for 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden. You're singing for everyone who has ever been told their dreams are impossible. You're carrying the hopes of every vocalist who has ever been underestimated." Word of the concert spread through the music industry like wildfire. Vocal coaches, music professors, and professional singers began making plans to attend what was being called the most ambitious vocal performance ever attempted. Tickets for Madison Square Garden sold out in 4 hours. Scalpers were getting $500 for seats that normally cost $25. Meanwhile, Howard Stern was beginning to understand the magnitude of the challenge he had issued. His producer arranged for vocal experts to appear on the show, explaining exactly what Whitney was attempting to accomplish. Dr. Stephen Zeitels from Harvard Medical School spent an hour detailing the physiological requirements of 8-octave singing. "What Miss Houston is proposing," Dr. Zeitels explained, "requires not just extraordinary natural ability, but perfect breath control, flawless vocal placement, and the kind of muscular coordination that takes decades to develop. Most trained singers can manage 5 octaves on their best day. 8 octaves across 10 genres for 3 hours is theoretically possible but practically unprecedented. Howard found himself in the unusual position of hoping he would lose his own bet. If Whitney pulls this off, he told Robin during a commercial break, she won't just win $1 million, she'll prove that cynicism without investigation is exactly what she said it is, ignorance with attitude. As December 15th approached, the concert had taken on a significance far beyond Howard's original challenge. Music schools were using it as a teaching moment about dedication and preparation. Vocal students worldwide were following Whitney's training regimen through interviews and behind-the-scenes coverage. The concert had become a symbol of what's possible when extraordinary talent meets extraordinary work. December 15th, 1995, 8 p.m. EST. Madison Square Garden. 20,000 people fell into complete silence as Whitney Houston approached the microphone at center stage. Howard Stern sat in the front row, his usual cynical smirk replaced by genuine nervousness. In his pocket was a checkbook with a pre-signed check for $1 million, and for the first time in his career, Howard Stern was hoping he would lose a bet. What happened over the next 3 hours would shatter every preconception about the limits of human vocal capability and transform a radio shock jock into Whitney Houston's most devoted believer. Whitney stood at the microphone wearing a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, no flashy costume or theatrical presentation. She didn't need gimmicks. What she was about to demonstrate was pure vocal artistry supported by 24 years of obsessive preparation. "Good evening," Whitney said, her voice carrying easily to every corner of the arena without amplification. "Tonight we're going to take a journey through 8 octaves and 10 musical genres. For the next 3 hours, I'm going to show you what the human voice can accomplish when natural gift meets disciplined work and spiritual foundation." She paused, looking directly at Howard in the front row. "Howard, I hope you brought that checkbook." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Howard managed a nervous wave, suddenly very aware that 20,000 people were watching him as much as Whitney. "We begin with gospel," Whitney announced, "because gospel taught me that the voice is a direct channel to the divine. Every note is a prayer. Every song is a conversation with God." The opening notes of Amazing Grace filled the arena, but this wasn't the version anyone had heard before. Whitney began in her lowest register, notes so deep they seemed to come from the earth itself, then slowly, systematically climbed through every octave in her range. By the time she reached the song's climax, she was hitting notes so high they seemed to pierce the ceiling of Madison Square Garden. The first octave transition was so seamless that many in the audience didn't realize what they had witnessed until vocal experts later analyzed the recording. Whitney had moved from her chest voice through her mixed voice to her head voice and finally to her whistle register, covering 8 full octaves without a single break in tone quality or pitch accuracy. Howard Stern's mouth fell open. This wasn't just singing. This was a demonstration of vocal control that defied biological logic. Classical music came next. Ave Maria performed with the technical precision of an opera singer but with the emotional depth that only Whitney could provide. Her voice soared through the complex melodic lines, hitting every note with crystalline clarity while maintaining perfect breath control. The New York Philharmonic members, who had worked with some of the greatest classical singers in the world, exchanged glances of amazement. This pop singer was demonstrating technical skills that rivaled the best operatic sopranos. Jazz followed. Summertime transformed into a showcase for Whitney's ability to improvise across her entire range. She took Gershwin's classic melody and rebuilt it from the ground up, adding runs and riffs that demonstrated not just technical ability but creative genius. Each improvisation was perfectly pitched, perfectly timed, perfectly executed. The jazz musicians on stage were shaking their heads in disbelief. Blues came next. Strange Fruit, the haunting Billie Holiday classic, performed with such emotional intensity that people in the audience were crying. Whitney's voice carved through the arena like a knife, every note carrying the weight of history and personal experience. She wasn't just singing the song, She was channeling the pain and hope of everyone who had ever faced impossible odds. Rock music followed. Whitney's version of Respect turned Aretha Franklin's anthem into a powerhouse demonstration of vocal power. She belted with the best rock singers while maintaining perfect pitch across 8 octaves. The rock musicians on stage were frantically trying to keep up with her energy and precision. Country music, Crazy by Patsy Cline, reimagined to showcase Whitney's ability to adapt her voice to any musical style. Her vocal agility was on full display as she navigated the song's complex emotional terrain while demonstrating perfect control across her entire range. Pop music, I Will Always Love You, but not the version people knew from The Bodyguard. This was an extended version that showcased every aspect of Whitney's technical arsenal. She moved seamlessly from intimate whispers to soaring power notes, from delicate head voice to commanding chest voice. World music, a traditional African spiritual sung in multiple languages, demonstrating that Whitney's voice could serve any musical tradition with authenticity and power. Her pronunciation was perfect, her cultural sensitivity evident in every note. Soul music, a natural woman performed with such raw emotional power that Aretha Franklin herself would have applauded. Whitney's voice commanded the arena, every note carrying the weight of personal experience and technical mastery. Hip-hop, this was where Whitney shocked everyone. She had arranged a collaboration with several rap artists who appeared on stage to create an improvised performance that combined her vocal abilities with contemporary urban music. She rapped, she sang, she beatboxed, she demonstrated that her voice could adapt to any musical context. 2.5 hours in, 9 genres complete, 20,000 people on their feet, many crying, all of them understanding they were witnessing something that would never be repeated. Howard Stern was no longer sitting in his chair. He was standing with everyone else, tears streaming down his face, his cynicism completely destroyed by the reality of Whitney's extraordinary capability. For the final genre, Whitney moved to the piano at center stage. This last song represents everything I've learned about the power of the human voice, she announced. It's a song I wrote specifically for tonight, combining elements from all 10 genres we've explored. It's called The Voice Inside, and it's dedicated to everyone who has ever been told their dreams are impossible. What followed was 20 minutes of the most extraordinary vocal performance in music history. Whitney sang her composition while playing piano, moving seamlessly between all 10 genres, demonstrating all 8 octaves, creating a musical journey that encompassed the entire range of human emotional experience. The technical perfection was undeniable, but it was the spiritual and emotional power of the performance that left 20,000 people transformed. When the final note faded, Madison Square Garden didn't just erupt, it exploded. 20,000 people didn't just applaud, they worshipped. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was revelation. Whitney stood at the piano, not even breathing heavily despite having performed for 3 hours straight, and spoke into her microphone for the first time since opening the concert. 10 genres, 8 octaves, 3 hours. Howard, you still got that checkbook? Howard Stern climbed onto the stage, his legs shaking from emotional and physical exhaustion. Whitney met him at center stage. Howard pulled the pre-signed check from his pocket, his hands trembling as he held it out. "I was wrong," Howard said, his voice thick with emotion and completely without his usual bravado. "Completely, utterly wrong. You're not just a singer, Whitney. You're a force of nature. I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard anything like this." Whitney took the check gracefully. "This goes to kids who dream of making music but can't afford voice lessons. Now they can afford whatever they need." The crowd went wild, but Howard wasn't finished. "I need to say something on the record," Howard announced to the arena. "I've spent 20 years being a cynic, 20 years doubting people, mocking claims that seem too extraordinary to believe. But tonight, Whitney Houston reminded me that miracles are real, that dedication and talent can create things that transcend normal human capability." He turned to Whitney. "I'm sorry I doubted you, and I'm grateful you proved me wrong so spectacularly." Whitney extended her hand. "Howard, doubt keeps us sharp. Challenge keeps us growing. Tonight happened because you pushed me to prove what I already knew I could do. They shook hands. The handshake lasted 10 seconds, but it symbolized the moment when skepticism met genius and had to admit complete defeat. The concert recording, officially released in 1996 as 8 Octaves live at Madison Square Garden, won multiple Grammy Awards and became required studying material for vocal students worldwide. Music schools analyzed every note, every transition, every technical aspect of what Whitney had accomplished. But more than the technical achievement, the concert became a symbol of what's possible when extraordinary talent meets extraordinary preparation and spiritual dedication. Years later, Howard